Hey, nerds. This is me. My voice. Wow, crazy. This isn't my normal form of content, as you might have noticed. No more, FNF finger family for tonight. But, yeah. So, I make music. I'm decent at it. Not amazing by any means, but I do it sometimes. So, back, I think it was like a year or so ago, when I started making music, I watched a bunch of tutorials, and there's a bunch of great tutorials on here for music, but just none of them really went over everything I find important now. So this video is to serve as more of like a complete guide to FL Studio. This video is for FL Studio specifically, but this should serve for any DAW out there. I'm not quite sure though, I don't use stuff like Ableton, but... So, yeah, running over how to make your first silly finger family FNF song. That's what I'm calling this. So, before you even open up your DAW, make sure you, at least know what you're doing slightly. Get acquainted with the controls, the sidebar, the patterns, all that stuff, whatever you use. There's tons of tutorials that don't really need to link anything. It's too complex to go over in this video, but again, if you just look it up, you should be able to find it. I would also recommend learning music theory, which again isn't necessary, but it should help you in making music. I was going to make this video more edited, but I'm lazy. That's the only excuse. So, yeah. So first, I start with adding a drum line. So if you want to find good drums, I would suggest looking... I mean, there's a bunch of sites for it, but I use, like, Looperman. So just look that up, different types, put in your specifications there, and find what works best. Then we have this. Let me skip ahead a bit so the EQ isn't messing with it. Okay, so basic drum line. Make sure it's the right BPM up there. If it's not, then it's going to throw the whole thing off. But then I typically add a bass line, which goes like this. So it's a little funky, little cool. For anyone new, you always want the bass line to be down. You don't want, I would say at least under the C4 key. So that's already sounded a bit funky there, you could say. Now, I can't recommend like any specific VSTs. I just use what's built in for the most part, besides for like Jenny, but I would just experiment, see what music like you like specifically. Just see what fits you. It takes a lot of practice and experimentation to find your style, and this is mine, and I figure I could show it to some people. Maybe it'll be your style too. It's definitely inspired by stuff like Atsu Over, I would say. Big inspiration there, but okay. So then I typically add a lead, which is something just a bit higher up. Similar pattern to the bass for this. It's just, up by the E5s, C5s. So then you have... Also, I should mention that in FL, these things up here are what's called slide notes. So you can see that little icon there. That basically makes it so it has a little silly sound on it compared to a normal note. And then slide notes are like... it just slides up. It's pretty self-explanatory there, but... So we got this so far. Okay, but at this point, it still kind of feels a bit empty. So you want to add some chords, which basically just multiple notes played at the same time. So basically to make chords. Chords are a bit complicated. You should know it's more than one note. It's not just pressing silly buttons to make the sound go. You actually have to plan it out. So what I do for chords is I'll kind of reconstruct this here. So I like to start with just bass notes of what you kind of want the chords to sound like. So like, so once you have that, I just copy and paste this bottom line and kind of move the top row up until it kind of sounds right. You might have to do a bit of adjusting besides for more copy and paste. Like you see for this one here, I had to move that down one to make it sound good. And same for over there. And then once you have those, you kind of just want to put some in the middle and just you can change it around to however you feel works best. Again, I wouldn't even consider myself close to a professional in this stuff, but so you have what's called minor chords and major chords. I obviously typically use minor chords since I'm a weirdo like that, but it depends on the song. So let me get a major. So this would be something of a major chord. Typically sounds a bit more cheerful. Now, while a minor chord sounds a bit, more sad, depressing, a little crybaby. So, again, I suggest learning music theory. There's a lot of stuff about this in there, minor, major, and pretty much just maybe even learning an instrument beforehand is really helpful. But one more thing I would like to bring up if you haven't learned music theory is you always want to have your song revolve around a certain key. So for here, I'm pretty sure it's the E3 key, or just E key. Yeah. So everything here revolves around this key. And if it doesn't, it's going to sound really bad. It's like I can move some stuff over here. See, that sounds just wrong. So just always make sure, it can be whatever key you like. Just make sure once you have that chosen, everything revolves around that. It just makes everything sound a lot more consistent. So then, at that point, you pretty much have the bass set up. So now it's going to be just adding some other stuff to make it sound not bad. So I added some piano here. So that kind of just serves as a way to tie everything together as well. Which is technically supposed to be what the vocals do. But, it never hurts adding a good melody. And then I added some pretty much plucks here, which are just like short bursts of notes, which make it just sound good, not sound complete ass. So you kind of see there, if you ever feel like your song's a bit too slow, I would say just adding something like this down here, like a bunch of quick rapid fire notes. Or I would suggest, I don't have it here, but an arpeggio, which is basically just a bunch of notes going up repeatedly, if that makes sense. I think I can get a quick example of that. So an arpeggio would be something like this. It's like, and then that just repeated a bit. Let me set this. And then maybe change it around a bit. So it's like, yeah, that was a bit slow there, but you get my point. So now that we have this, which is, that's pretty much the base of the song done there. So at this point, you're free to add a bunch of other stuff you think would sound good. So here I added another piano, little motif from Toby Fox, can't go wrong there. And then I also added some bells a bit later in the song that go like. So, and then I also added a bit of orchestra hits here, which I would recommend using. It adds a bit of a oomph to your song if you get it, but. So it's just that, and then just repeat it throughout the song. Now, that's pretty much the main song complete. Not talking about vocals or anything yet, but yeah. And then at this point, I usually go through and add some sound effects, like rises, cymbals, like. I just used the one from Undertale, but. So that, like the orchestra hits, just kind of adds a bit of oomph to your song. And then I usually go through and add some sillies, which, you know, just also add some variation to your song. Now, this song here isn't too varied. Typically, you want to change up the chords and stuff. You want to change the melody more. But this is just a basic tutorial song, so it's not that big of a deal. And then, down here, now, this is something I wish I knew when I first started. So, these are what's called automation clips, and there's different automation clips for different things. So this right here is for, let me pull this up. So on the master channel, I have a fruity parametric EQ. So that basically just, when that's on, it just makes the song sound all compressed, like that. So it's just a good way to start songs. And then the one underneath, this is obviously volume. So this is just master volume here. And then underneath this is panning for these silly little synth plucks there. That just makes it go from one ear to the other throughout the song. And to add these automation clips, pretty much just go over anything you want to automate. Like for here, it's panning. So you can just right click that, create automation clip, master panning. You can go over to the volume bar, create automation clip, master volume. And then if you apply an effect on something and want to gradually turn it down, there's this little bar right here, and you can right click that, create automation clip. So a big part of songs is just making sure the EQ sounds good. I'm not nearly smart enough for that yet. Ideally, you want to have like an equal amount of all sound waves in a song, so you can see when I kind of play it here. Now this is for a kind of effect, but you see how the waves are kind of even there. This song could probably use a bit more in the bass end, or the low frequency end, because you can see how it's a bit lower. But another thing I just do, it's extremely simple and it makes your song sound a lot better. It's just this little sound goodizer thing here. Just put that on master, turn it to A, and then just like that much up. So this is the song without it. And then this is it with it. See how it kind of just makes everything more clear. So at this point, you've got your main song done. You can add some voice clips in here if you'd like. Careful, I would skip ahead a second if you're a little child and can't hear any no-no words. It's going to say a little no-no word in a second. Oh, the humanity. But yeah, so that's pretty much the song done. You want drums, a bass line, a basic lead, maybe a piano in there if you'd like, up to preference, and then some chords, which is, again, multiple notes played at the same time to make it sound good. And then you can just go through and add a bunch of random stuff that you think sounds good. Just make sure it revolves around that same key. Now, arguably the most important part is the vocals here. You can pretty much find a basic boyfriend chromatic anywhere online, just look it up. So for my voices, I'm very melodic with it, and I make it sound good, in my opinion. But typically I also apply a bit of reverb, which I use Fruity Reverb 2 here. I just apply a bit of that, makes the voices sound a bit more full. So once you got that, you also want to make sure the voices aren't, too loud. You don't want them to overshadow the song. But you also don't want them to be too quiet, or else, you just can't hear them. So turn that on. So that's a good volume right there. They're very clearly hearable while not being too loud. Now, if you're just here for the normal song aspect of it, you can leave now. This is just going to go over the how to make vocals. So I'm not going to go over how to make chromatics and stuff like that, but I will talk about how to use SliceX. So pretty much, you just once you have your chromatic made, watch a tutorial on that, you just want to drag it in here. And at that point, you can, if it's not too cramped, you can use dull audio slicing. Basically just right click this icon, dull audio slicing. Gets all the markers laid out for you. But if it is, you can also manually place the markers with this thing. So once you have that set up, it's basically just a matter of the same thing you did for your main lead. You just want to do that again, but vary it up a lot. Like, and remember, it's not bad to reuse melodies. Like here, I use this. And near the end, I pretty much use the same thing. So for vocals, it's basically just like another lead. Think of the vocals as just another instrument there. You just want to make them how you would any other thing. And you can't really see the keys on here, so you kind of got to use your baby ears. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, and one more thing I would like to say is another way to add some impact to your song is near the end. Maybe have it shift up a key. Like from here. See how it kind of goes up there? I used a slide note, which that's one thing they're useful for the slide notes. They you can have it so it smoothly shift keys. So basically for these, you just make unique patterns and then shift everything up by a single thing. So you see here, it's the E key. Up right now, I moved it up once, so it's now to the F5 F key. So again, a lot of these steps aren't necessary. They're just stuff I would recommend playing around with, see what fits your music style, and see what you just find sounding good. Now, I'm not going to play this full thing yet for you guys, just because, it is a mod. If you were paying attention earlier, you might have saw a quick sneak peek of it. But, yeah, that's pretty much it. So just run down, you want drums, basic drums, make sure you match the BPM, add a bass, low notes. Then you want to add a basic lead, I would say, which is higher notes, more melodic. Then you want to add some chords, which line up with the lead. Then at that point, you can add just random stuff. I would recommend adding a bit of fast-paced notes just to, make your song sound a little faster if that's what you'd like. Then for the vocals, just construct it like another lead. Make sure you vary it up a bit. Remember to use slide notes and stuff. Those sound good. And, yeah, I guess that's a quick rundown. If you want a much more in-depth tutorial, I would say, just look up a basic FL Studio tutorial. This is more my process, meant to help some people with some more intricate stuff they might not have learned, like the EQ thing and just tips and tricks to make your song sound not shit. Okay, well, that's it. Thanks for, if you're hearing this, thanks for sticking to the end of the video. I know this is new content for me. So, thanks. See ya.